Is it my turn here?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, I got a new laptop this last week, and unfortunately, I transferred a bunch of stuff, and a few things had not gone properly. So the talk I planned for tonight, like the file's corrupt, and I'm not going to be able to rebuild it in time. So would you guys mind if we're flexible and did another topic? That possible? Sure. Mind? I've got a couple. I've got rubies and sapphires in North America. I've got one on the history of birthstones. I've got one on rare gems, rare and unusual gems of California. I don't know if either of those would strike your fancy. Any thoughts?
Well, we're all muted. We're all muted. Let's unmute. Well, how do I unmute everybody?
Rubies and sapphires. For California gems. Just saying.
And this right. Let me tell you, the California gems basically covers Benitoite. Let's see. Now I'm going to have a mental lapse here. Sorry about that. It's been a long day. Anyway,
Benitoite's good. We're good with Benitoite.
California gems.
Yeah, it also has Vesuvianite in that one too, if you're into Vesuvianite. So would that work? Okay, give me 30 seconds. Let me just go to that screen and I will. There we are. Let's see. Let's see how this goes now. And let's see. One. Okay, just give it a second here. Close. Okay, let's see. Here we are. Sorry about that. Yeah, this was a very last minute thing. I'm sorry about that. I was a little frantic when I realized it wasn't opening. Let me just get it to slideshow. Beginning. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Don't see anything, just see your face right now.
Oh no. You gotta
share
okay,
your screen.
Let me do this here. Let me go back for a second. I gotta escape here. I always remember that's this. Let me go from the beginning. I will go back. Escape.
Screen share.
Yep, hang on just once. Let me go to I gotta go in between two screens here. So I'm gonna say share screen. Okay, here we go. And we'll go. Let's see if okay, how's that? Does that show up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Well, sorry for the very last minute change here. I say my other laptop blew up. Actually, I dropped it and broke the screen and had to try to transfer everything to the new machine. Well, I guess everything didn't transfer. But I've been doing a whole series of talks on gemstones from North America. And of course, a lot of requests for, speaking, especially for local clubs. Thought I'd be interested to do some specifically on California. So I got one on, the pegmatites, which of course you guys are well familiar with. I thought it'd be, kind of fun to do something on some of the more unusual minerals. Of course, Benitoite's very well known, but then I've added Lapis lazuli, which is found here in several locations, as well as Vesuvianite, which is also found in several locations. So let's see if we can get this going. All right. I say some of this can be old hat to some of you, but obviously, California is very well known as a gemstone state. There are tons of different things that are found here, from the pegmatite mines to jade to the state gemstone benitoite. And that'll kind of be the focus for this talk, because it truly is one of the rarest gems in the world. And of course, all the gem material was mined from a single location up in Central California. And you can interrupt me with questions, at any time during this. I don't know how many people are online, but it seems like a small group. So, feel free to interrupt if you have any questions. Okay, here's a list of basically the gems found here in the state. And we're going to highlight on the top left side, the three that are in red tonight. You can see it's a long list of gemstones from California. Okay, the reason that we have so many types of gem deposits here is because we have an incredibly diverse geology being right at the boundary between two plates, basically the Pacific Ocean plate and the North American plate, there's a lot of activity going on. You've got, lots of faulting, volcanic activity. You've got basically subduction, where material from the continent and the ocean, right at the junction between the two, is being dropped, subducted, or dropped way down into the Earth's crust, even into the mantle, and then comes up again. Lots of metamorphism, all kinds of activities. And so they've given us an incredibly diverse and for sort of a great wealth in mineral resources. Okay, I thought I'd start with the state gemstone, Benitoite. It's a spectacular mineral. It's a very unusual one. Again, one locale as far as gem material. And since mining is very negligible these days, most of these materials being recovered from sort of the old mine dumps and very little work on the deposit itself, it's become very scarce and very high demand. Okay, for those who are not familiar with it, Benitoite occurs in Central California, just at the junction of San Benito, Monterey, and Fresno counties, right? The very southeastern part of San Benito County. And it's been mined, for about a little over 100 years now. Okay, the history is pretty interesting. It was discovered in 1907 by a prospector. His name was James Crouch, and he was supported financially by a guy named Mr. Dallas. Basically, he was financed. These crystals were found. They initially thought they were sapphires, brought them in to UC Berkeley, and a geologist there by the name of George Lauterbach had identified this as a brand new mineral species, a very interesting chemistry, a neat crystal structure, and was a significant new find. At that time, there was a lot of interest in gemstones, especially from companies like Tiffany and many others, where American gemstones were kind of the rage. This is about the same time that the pegmatite mines in Southern California were being developed, that tourmaline was being mined in Maine. There was gem finds all over the US at that time, and they're bringing to market. Contrary to popular belief, George Kuntz and Tiffany were not the ones that were initially to bring Benitoite to market. They were involved later on, but the original rights went to a jeweler out of San Francisco. They're obviously close to Berkeley, where it had been discovered. And initial mining under basically Mr. Dallas occurred between 1907 and 1912. And it had a little bit of a splash, but one of the problems is very rare. And rare gemstones, like a lot of other rare things, never really caught on with the public because there wasn't enough material to go around. So they mined for about 5 years, and then had mined the easy stuff, had a little problem and expense to try to find more, especially going underground, and works stopped for a while. It initially was a big open cut in the side of a hill and some tunnels that went into the rock. So it's pretty simplistic mining, but once you go underground, the costs get very expensive, and there wasn't enough material to justify the expense. In the early 1900s, there wasn't much of a demand for mineral specimens, so almost all the material that was found was used for cutting purposes if it was good enough. Okay, there are a lot of attempts at mining, and again, not a lot of production. In the 20s, early 30s, during the Depression, after World War II, in the 1950s, mining was tried. There was a little bit of mining in the late 40s and early 50s, and that was the first time you really saw benitoite mined for specimen material. So a little more came out. And it's interesting that for the first 60 years, between 1907 and 1967, they're estimated there's only about 2,500 carats of faceted benitoite were produced in a 60-year period. Now, I mean, you may have gemstone eggs in your collection that weigh that much. 500 grams is not a lot of material. So that's a very rare gem. Now, things started to change in 1907 when two gem dealers, Buzz Gray and Bill Forrest, leased the property from the Dallas family. And after about 20 years of working, they purchased the mine. And they worked it pretty continuously until 1999. Some of you might know Buzz or Mike Gray. In fact, Buzz had some really nice exhibits at the Bowers Museum. He's a well-known gem cutter, as is his son. And Buzz's girlfriend is a jewelry designer, and they've created some incredible pieces, some of that have utilized benitoite. Anyway, in 1985, the California legislature designated benitoite as the state gemstone, which brought a lot of notoriety to it. But in that period where the Grays were working for about 30 years, again, only about 2,000 carats of faceted benitoite were produced in that entire time period. So now we're, less than 5,000 carats of material were mined in about a 90-year period. Most of it was very small. A lot of it was, a tenth of a carat, quarter carat. Anything over a carat is considered pretty rare and pretty highly valued. Prices for benitoite, say at a carat, might range anywhere from 3,000 on the lower end up to maybe 6,000 or 8,000 on the higher end per carat. Pretty pricey. Okay. All through the last century, mining was pretty simple. Basically, open cut. This is a picture from around 1970, just after Buzz Gray and Bill Forrest bought the property. You can see that they've extended the workings on the outside, just cutting into the hill, and then a few little drifts or tunnels to go into the hillside, but not a lot of large scale production here. And it's a nice area. It's pretty remote. And again, there's not a lot of material that was found. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, in the 80s and the 1990s, there was interest from some very large mining companies to try to commercially mine gemstones. Some companies had success mining diamonds at that point, and were looking at other materials. And there was a vice president for Kennecott who had an idea that he thought that they could corner the market on some rare gemstones. One of them was benitoite. So they leased the mine and did an evaluation of the property for commercial mining, but it never materialized. They just didn't have the economics for a large company. They had very large overhead. It used to using large equipment. This mine was not suitable for large scale mining. Interesting enough, the Kennecott also had done the same thing with the Red Beryl in Utah. You ever seen the Red Beryl from the Wawa Mountains? Again, they tried the same thing there. They had evaluated that property and again decided that it just wasn't economic to do it. So that was a big flop. But in 2000, the mine was purchased by another company, actually called Benitoite Mining. This was part of Collector's Edge Minerals out of Golden, Colorado. Actually, Brian Lee's president of that company. And they mined it on a larger scale, compared to what had been done before, for about 4 years. So between 2000 and 2004, they mined it and pretty much exhausted, as far as they say. They said, in talking to Brian and his people, they said they mined it pretty much right down to the fault, which cut off the ore body. So it's, in their opinion, they mined it out and shouldn't be basically nothing left. In 2005, the property was purchased from Benitoite Mining by a gentleman named David Treiner. And to this day, they're operating it as a feed dig. They would have basically screens set up where you do things very similar to if you went to the Ocean View or the Stewart Mines down in Pala, where you'd get a bucket of material, you'd screen it, wash it, and look for gemstones. In talking to those folks, so they do think there is more potential there. They've been looking a little bit. It's pretty complex geology, so it may take a while before they find it. They're hoping to find an extension to that ore body. If that's the case, then they might get back in the mining industry or business there. But right now, it's considered a feed dig, and you're working the dumps that have been worked probably 2 or 3 times before. Oh, anyway, this is the mining operation as of 2002. This is under Benitoite Mining. Where they did a little larger scale, they brought in crushers and screening plants, and they are basically ripping the rock, crushing it down to a certain size, and then looking for gemstones and mineral specimens. Quite a bit larger scale than had been done previously, and they got a lot of good gem material out of this. And when they got to an area that they thought would be good for gemstones, larger gemstones or mineral specimens, then they would go and mine by hand, as had been done previously. Anyway, we'll come back to that in a little bit. But to get a little bit of the geology of the area, it's in a very complex area. If you look at this photo here, map, this large blue area, or sort of purplish blue area, that is a serpentinite. These are basically serpentines. These are altered salts that have been subducted. This is probably oceanic material that have been subducted down into the Earth's crust, maybe it's the upper mantle, heated, hydrated, cooked pretty well, and then brought back up to the surface over, maybe 100 million years or more. And the benitoite deposits occur in this area, and they occur in areas of altered serpentine. Basically, there's some red and some pink spots you can see. There are a couple other properties that have produced a little bit, let's go back here, a little bit of benitoite, but it's been very small and specimen grade only, and very poor specimens, nothing really clean like we're used to seeing. So really, basically in the kind of right lower center here, that area is the benitoite gem mine. Although there is a couple other places, and particularly the Mina Numero Uno and the Juanilla mine that had, and the Victor had produced a tiny bit, but basically no gemstone production. I think maybe 1 or 2 gems were found, I believe, at the Numero Uno, and that's about it. But this area is pretty well known. Besides the benitoite occurrence, there are places here you can find the melanite garnets, the black garnets. There's some asbestos in the area, and some other minerals, some garnets of various types, including a little bit of basically some of the chromium-rich garnets here. But benitoite is, and associated minerals are pretty much the ones that people are looking for. Anyway, so basically what you're looking at here is there's a serpentinite with a glaucophane schist, they call a blue schist. That's, part of this plate tectonics, the collision of these 2 continents here. The benitoite occurs in fracture fillings with some other minerals like naturalite, neptunite, and a few others in the blue schist portion of this serpentinite ore body. I got a good picture. This is the material right here, the brownish, dark light brownish material. That is the altered rock. You have, then there was an episode where you had benitoite, that sort of dark blue material that formed along the edges of these little fractures. Basically, the area has been torn apart a little bit, and you have little spaces that have formed due to the faulting of the area. The area was stretched, so you have these spaces that occur. And hydrothermal fluid came in, deposited the benitoite, and after that, you had continued hydrothermal activity, and it deposited the white material, which is the naturalite. So basically, what people would look for is try to look for that junction where the naturalite and the benitoite come together, and that's where the best specimens come from. Okay, and here's the place today. So if you want to go up and take your chances, there are people, I don't know how it is right now with COVID-19, but you can go up there and find some occasionally good material. I have a customer who found a crystal about maybe 7 years ago that brought in, we cut it, and we got a little bit over a carat gemstone out of it for him. So it is possible on occasion to find a decent stone up there, though most of the material you'll find is pretty included and things like that. But basically, this is what people are looking for in the past and today. These are some very fine examples of some mineral specimens. One interesting thing from a gem standpoint, benitoite is fairly included, especially in the central part. We've all these sort of triangular crystals. And if you look at the photo on the left-hand side of the screen, you see there's this white area in the middle. And this is the, basically benitoite that's somewhat included. It doesn't have the chromophore, the colorant that gives the rest of the crystal, its color. And sometimes there's little inclusions of other things in it, but the gem material tends to occur along in the corners. So if you look at this large stone on the right of this first specimen, this lower corner here is the part that's gemmy. And for crystals like this, you basically cut this little section here to get your gemstone. And typical would be something on the right-hand side there. You'll see there are a number of triangular trillion shaped gems. You do occasionally get ovals. They'll also fit in something like that. Rarely round. It really depends on the type of material. But again, a lot of the material starts as a triangular, shaped stone. So that's why there's a lot of triangular material that comes out as far as finished gemstones. Okay. One nice thing about benitoite, it's fluorescent under shortwave ultraviolet, and that makes it ideal for prospecting at night. It's a lot easier to spot this stuff because it's a beautiful, bright blue fluorescence. So people who prospect in this area at night, may be fortunate and find material that they may have overlooked during the day. So if you ever get up in that area and have an opportunity, black light at night works really well in trying to find stuff. Probably better than just walking, screening dirt. You can actually cover a large area and find boulders that have rolled down the hills into the stream beds, and it gives you a larger area to prospect, when you're working with fluorescent. Okay, one neat thing about benitoite is lots of cool associated minerals, and some of these are very rare as well. This photo on the left is a great picture. This is an actual specimen. It wasn't manufactured. It's actually found and etched like that, which shows the triangular benitoite crystals along with neptunite and fresnoite, and probably a little bit of waukeanite in here, which are those sort of orangey to brownish minerals. And the neptunite, of course, is jet black, very lustrous. Actually, at a transmitted light, it's actually a dark reddish brown, but it looks black when you see it. Here's a couple of the other rare minerals you find here. These sort of honey brown colored crystals are waukeanite. The light yellowish, orangey pink maybe crystals here, those are another mineral called fresnoite. These are both extremely rare minerals and found in that area. On the right side, a couple other things you'll see. You've got the long needle-like neptunites, and then you've got these little more squat crystals here. That's a mineral called zazurolite, which is a copper sulfide. So there's a little bit of copper in these rocks, and that would have been derived from the original basalts themselves, because a lot of basalts carry a little bit of copper very deep within the Earth's crust or even the mantle. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that people dream about. This particular specimen, or this gemstone, was the most expensive benitoite ever sold. It's a little over 8 carats, and you would not believe the price per carat for this. This thing, so it's flawless, gorgeous color, is not really color zoned. It's ideal for a benitoite gemstone. This sold for $46,000 a carat for an 8 carat stone. Oh, I mean, you do the math on that, and that is, about $350,000 that stone sold for. So quite remarkable, and it's an outrageous. Anyway, I guess it was sold about maybe 15 years ago. So who knows what it would pull today if it was available. All right, here we go. Now, here's an interesting, the stone on the left here is one that we actually cut for a customer who was found it at the benitoite feed. This is this little pear-shaped piece. It was a little sliver of a crystal, but it was very clean. And so we cut a 1.08 carat stone out of that. That stone is probably worth a good $3,500 to $4,000. So that was probably not a bad investment for his day or two up there digging. Most people aren't so lucky, but occasionally, though, people do find something that makes it worthwhile. But typically, the benitoites that you see are not that clean. Color's maybe not that good. The one on the right here, it's a decent stone. It's got a halfway decent color, but it's color zoned and also has a lot of inclusions. Many of the benitoites are included. Sometimes they'll have needles of some amphibole minerals, generally called crossite. It's possible to have some neptunite within the crystal itself as well. So a lot of them aren't really clean, and some are highly included. Some of the crystals so much that they have almost a greenish gray color than blue, because there's so many mineral inclusions in the stones. And here's one. It's not a great picture, but does show some of the color shades. This is out of an old book, The Color Encyclopedia of Gemstones by Joel Aram. And you can see that the color can vary from dark to very light. This one, the center here, is a very, very pale blue. Looks like a pale aquamarine. The one thing about benitoite, especially in the lighter colors, it has a very high refractive index. So when you see it, it's got to look almost like a diamond, because it really, a lot of dispersion in this. So when you see a very light colored benitoite, they're still very beautiful if they're clean, because they have that really high dispersion. Oh, a nice high luster. So, and even the stones that go towards colorless are very desirable because of that dispersion. Again, they look a little bit like a diamond, and very similar refractive index. All right, any questions about benitoite? All right, we're going to move on to Vesuvianite. I don't know how many people are familiar with this. Most of the deposits are in the northern part of the state. Vesuvianite's gone by a number of other names. The old name for Vesuvianite's a mineral. The old name was idocrase, and some varietal names, especially here locally, are called californite and pulga jade. Californite was actually named by George Kuntz. He was the vice president, gemologist, and sort of marketing expert for Tiffany at the turn of the last century. And he was really keen on American gemstones. And in the early 1900s, Tiffany actually created its own birthstone chart, which was all American gemstones. And actually, Vesuvianite, the variety californite, they used in their birthstone chart. So if you have an old Tiffany chart from, say, 1910, it'll actually have, I think it was March birthstone was californite, which again, varietal name, but I think it's probably the only time Vesuvianite has ever been used in any birthstone thing. But pretty neat. And some of the material is actually pretty cool. It comes in a number of shades of color. This is a metamorphic rock, basically, just like the host rock for the benitoite. In fact, all the ones we're going to talk about tonight are metamorphics, which is kind of interesting. We talk about the pegmatites or igneous rocks. But tonight, this one's on more metamorphic stuff. Anyway, a lot of times Vesuvianite is found with grossular garnet, can be found in marbles and things like that. It's got pretty diverse geology, but gemstones actually can be pretty decent here. One of the main areas, probably the most well-known area for Vesuvianite, is near the town of Happy Camp, which is an old gold mining town, almost up on the California-Oregon border, up in the Siskiyou Mountains, part of the Klamath National Forest. And this area here has got a long history for gold mining, and actually a long history for finding this Vesuvianite. Okay, and basically, before we talked about the benitoite, we talked about the benitoite being in these serpentinized rocks. Basically, these are basalts that were altered under high heat and pressure and a lot of water within them to break down the minerals in the basalt into basically a serpentine. In this case, these rocks are found where limestones came in contact with these serpentinized rocks, which were coming up from down below. So these are found more like the contact between them. Again, some of the minerals that you find typically with Vesuvianite are grossular garnet, chlorite, which type of mica, and in particular from the material from Happy Camp, you can occasionally find native gold in the rock with the Vesuvianite. So that would make pretty cool cabochons if you could find a little gold in with the Vesuvianite. And the term California jade basically, or californite, basically comes from the occurrence at Happy Camp here. Well known. Let's see, and I don't know why it's not in there. Well, I say when this side, once these files transferred, it looks like I got a few problems in here. But anyway, Vesuvianite is very old gemstone. It's thought that it was probably discovered by Chinese gold prospectors in the early 1850s in this area, and they thought it was a type of nephrite jade. Another thought was that it was found by a doctor named Hayway on his land right out of Happy Camp along Indian Creek around 1902. Probably both these stories are true. I'm sure that people knew about it. They may have thought it was jade, but if they're looking for gold, there probably wasn't enough of that material to really excite anyone's interest. Anyway, Dr. Hayway was the gentleman who started to promote it, and he got the attention of George Kunz in 1903. So Kunz then made a deal with the doctor. They were mining it and selling it through Tiffany under the term Californite. Interesting, in the 1930s and 40s, the mine changed hands, and a guy by the name of James Kraft, he was the heir to Kraft Foods. He bought the property as sort of a hunting and recreational property, and he mined Vesuvianite from his claims up there. So I'm sure that helped when he had a very wealthy person mining the material to keep it going. I assume he probably knew of it through Tiffany's marketing. Okay. Over the years, a number of other Vesuvianite localities have been found in the state. There's one in Butte County called the Pulga deposit. The term Pulga jade comes from. It's also in Tulare County and in Fresno County. And overall, there's about 14 mines and prospects in the northern part of the state that have produced Vesuvianite. And some of them are pretty nice. Here's some material from the Pulga deposit. They sometimes call it Pulga jade. And it's pretty neat. It's sort of a two-tone. The colorant in this, the chromophore, is chromium, which of course gives emerald its color as well, or uvarovite garnets, things like that. So you'll see the concentration of chromium varies in this. Chromium is pretty common in the basalts and the serpentines, so it's not unusual that you'll find it associated with the Vesuvianite mineralogy here. Anyway, here's some really fine, sort of high-grade Vesuvianite from California. You don't see it very much, but it's actually pretty impressive. It's a pretty stone. Has a nice color, similar, say from a cabochon standpoint, maybe similar color to what you'd expect from peridot. Same kind of color hues, from a kind of a yellow green to a grass green in color. Again, colored by chromium, so it's a pretty attractive green. It's not the typical drab or drab iron colored greens you see in other minerals. All right, any questions about Vesuvianite? All right, last one is Lapis. Lapis is really cool. Again, another metamorphic rock. This is found in altered rocks, this case in the southern part of the state. There are several deposits that have been found here. The one notable one is not far from us here. This is in Los Angeles and San Bernardino County, in the area around Cascade Canyon. This is the same locale where you find rubies. If anyone's ever been to the San Bernardino National Forest, there are places you can prospect in that in Cascade Canyon area. Okay, the discovery is attributed to a mineral dealer by the name of Wilkie. It was from Palo Alto in 1910, and he identified it as lapis. Local gold miners, silver miners in the area have been looking for placer gold, thought the lapis was a silver mineral, and were hunting there for silver, no success. It didn't, this material had no silver in it at all. And my guess is Mr. Wilkie probably heard about this through one of the gold miners, and then came down and actually was the first to recognize it, and then tried to mine it here. For those who are not that familiar with lapis, it is not a mineral, but it's actually a rock. It is composed of 3 different minerals, potentially, that will give it the blue color. One is lazulite, one is sodalite, and the last one is hoween. It also has diopside, pyrite, quartz, calcite, graphite generally in it. But if you ever see lapis, you'll see that the color varies quite a bit. And lapis from different localities vary. And that is because there are different, say, percentages of the lazulite, the sodalite, and the haween. Sodalite tends to be a little more grayer. The lazulite and haween have much more vibrant, rich blue. So it's that, combination sort of modeling which gives lapis its distinctive look. The material from most of these areas, though, is fairly high in sodalite and lazulite. In some cases, like for example, the lapis that comes from Chile, the Chilean lapis, is primarily sodalite. So it has a little different look to it, not quite as vibrant as, say, the material from Afghanistan. Anyway, lapis occurs in sedimentary rocks that are altered by coming in contact with igneous rocks, basically the contact metamorphism. In the last case with the Vesuvianite, you had basically something similar, except the sedimentary rocks came in contact with metamorphic rocks, the serpentinites. In this case, it's granites, the igneous rock. And it's that mixing of the, say, limestones with the granites that produce the mineral assemblage, which can include lapis. Okay. Again, it was discovered around 1910. There was a little bit of mining between 1910 and 1913. After that, there wasn't much interest. I think they were mostly mining float and the little veins that they found in the 30s. You always see mining during the Depression, 1930s, because people were desperate for money. So they would, investigate old mining areas to see if they could find something. In the 1940s, after World War II, there was a significant discovery. Somebody very high up on Stoddard Mountain found a large vein of lapis. I mean, this was pretty big. It was several feet thick. And by that time, the Forest Service was already managing this area with some protection. So they were not allowed to blast or to use heavy equipment. So it didn't do very well. They did find some nice material. They actually did some tunneling into the hill and mined some material, but not a lot. Then it was in late 1970s, this deposit was claimed by a gentleman by the name of Sam Spearstra, and he started mining it. And this is a real interesting time period. The mine was the Bighorn mine. This is some of the lapis that comes from here. It's not bad. It's certainly not as good as the lapis you find from Afghanistan, but it's pretty decent quality. And in small pieces, you can actually get a very nice color. Not as much pyrite as you'll find in the Afghani material, but the color patterns are similar overall. So it is pretty decent. And even to this day, people will find material as float, in the screed down the hill from the deposit. Anyway, the lapis was mined for about a year by this Mr. Spearstra between 1979 and 1980. Now, he did really well. He was producing 50 to 150 pounds a day of pretty good quality lapis, which is pretty significant because they're packing it off the mountain by hiking. I think he might have had a mule or something. But he ran into trouble. And basically, he got sued by the Forest Service and was forced to stop production in 1980. What he didn't know was that in 1964, this area became part of the Cucamonga Wilderness Area and was withdrawn from mineral entry. So basically, mining was not allowed. And either he didn't know it or disregard it, but they sued him. He was made to give up his, basically vacate the property by a court ruling decision in 1984. Now, you can still go up there. I think you can hike up to that. It's a very difficult hike, but it's possible to get up there. And I know collectors occasionally do. You can also find some of this float material that's found below that area. Now, I think there's, if you go into old collections, you may find some stuff, if the collection is more than 30, 40 years old, you may find some of this old lapis in some of these collections. So if you're, going to some weekend rockhound, yard sale, and you see a bunch of lapis from an older collection, it's probably more likely to be from California than it is from Afghanistan. So keep that in mind. You may find some good old material there. Just give you a real quick thing. This is a sort of a idea of the geology. It's fairly complicated here. You've got a lot of granitic rocks in here, like diorites or monzonites. You've got marbles, you've got other granites, you got metamorphic rocks like gneisses. So this, this is a high elevation in the San Bernardino Mountains and pretty complex. And the area where the lapis occurs, the main area is right, this little blue star that's kind of on the right side of the picture, this below center. And so this is right near the contact of this bluish marble, where it comes in contact with some of these other rocks in the area. But it's a pretty good area. There was a fair amount of material, obviously, is mined there. Interestingly enough, there are other places in the state that have produced a little. Some have been, pretty old. There's some information on some old government reports that mention lapis. In fact, one going back to 1908 in a place called Brayfogle Canyon, part of Death Valley. There's a U.S. Geological Survey report that mentions the creation of a company called the Lapis Lazuli Mining Company. So obviously somebody prospecting for gold or silver in Death Valley at the turn of the last century had found a little lapis and actually created a company for that. And that's really almost about the same time as, of course, the material here in San Bernardino County was found. There's other mentions of a place called San Carlos Mine in Inyo County. Also, Death Valley is also Inyo County. So there's some question about if those are actually the same mine or not. I don't think so, because I've heard rumors of another location that's closer to Telescope Peak on the opposite side of the valley. One interesting thing about this, though, is that I actually met a gentleman in the early 1980s. I was working as a geologist for a mining company out in Death Valley, and my boss lived in Tacoma Hot Springs. And he wanted me to meet a guy named Little Paul. And so I went to visit him up with my boss on a Saturday, and he showed us some really nice lapis he was mining in Death Valley. And he had a little mining claim on it, and he mined it for a year or two, and then he was basically forced off by the National Park Service. They said it was within the boundaries of the national park. I'm not sure it was at the time, but he lost his case and wasn't able to proceed. So it's quite possible that is the same Brayfogle Canyon that's listed here in this old report. But it was pretty decent stuff. I didn't get any specimens. I wish I had right now, but he was a pretty fascinating character. This Little Paul was one of the Charles Manson's followers in the late 1960s. And interestingly enough, he left the group when things started getting really weird. And he turned out to be one of the state witnesses against Manson and his followers in the big court case when they were prosecuted for killing Sharon Tate and some other people in that mass murder. And it was interesting because if you ever read the book Helter Skelter, this guy shows up. They talk about him as one of the witnesses. So I got to meet a Manson person, which was kind of interesting. He also, he just got back from Hawaii. Besides mining lapis, he had a little agriculture business in Hawaii. And when we met him, he was smoking this huge marijuana cigar. It was like a very interesting character. But he did have some nice lapis, which I thought was pretty cool. Anyway, all right, basically that's it. I was going to ask if anyone knows of any lapis locales. I'm trying to mention there's very little published information on lapis in the Western U.S. And so I think there's probably some locales that are known. In fact, somebody told me of a spot that they thought there was lapis out in the Mojave Desert, which certainly possible. With the kind of rocks that this occurs in, which is basically limestones in contact with igneous rocks. There's a lot of that out there. You look in, you could possibly find it maybe up near Big Bear. There's some areas around this part of the state where you've got the same environment. Wherever you find like the marble quarries, I would think there's potential to find lapis. So when you're out in the field, keep your eye out for something unusual. In fact, I went down to one of the talks I gave on this last year. This gentleman said he thinks he may have found lapis out, I think it was in maybe Riverside County, he thought. He found some material float that he thought was lapis. So it's certainly possible. And I would really try to keep your eye out if you're out prospecting, because this area certainly has the kind of environment when you might find that. Anyway, that's pretty much my talk on this. Just give a little overview of some of these things that are found in this area. Any questions from anyone?
Why don't we, Michelle, can you unmute everybody?
I can ask people to unmute. That's what I can
If
do.
you want to unmute.
Sure.
Participants are able to unmute if they wish, I believe. I have a question. I have some lapis and only parts of it fluoresces. What's the mineral, if you know, in lapis that fluoresces? It's orange, I believe.
Actually, sodalite can fluoresce.
Yeah, what about it?
So it's possible it's
On the mic.
let's see, I'm gonna stop. Let me see. I'm gonna stop sharing that. Okay. You can see me now. But yeah, sodalite is a mineral that does fluoresce sort of yellow to orange. So it's quite possible it's sodalite.
Okay, interesting. I was curious about that. And I didn't know lapis was found in the US. That's really cool.
Yeah, there's actually some that's also found in Colorado. So, but the material from California is actually pretty decent. And there's enough of it that's been found. I mean, you imagine a guy was pulling up 50 to 150 pounds a day for a year of mining. That's a lot of lapis. I mean, we're talking tons of material that he pulled out. So
Wonder where it all went.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. You don't see much at all. You'll see an occasional piece or two. I think I have 2 or 3 pieces that I've picked up from collections over the years, but not much. So it's out there somewhere.
But the claim hasn't been rediscovered? Or
Well, there are people that go up there. There's a couple of guys that do some local shows like out in Yucca Valley and some of those areas, I think, that will occasionally have some lapis to show. They will hike up to the old mines and collect a little bit. Legally, you can't mine it because it's part of the Forest Service lands that are off limits. It's part of a wilderness area. But if you're in the Cascade Canyon area looking, for the rubies, which are down low, you can look at some of the material that's, in the riverbeds and on the slopes. It's a very steep slope. I mean, it's difficult. There's a lot of manzanita up there. You've got poison oak. Not an easy hike up there, but people do occasionally do it. But I would say if you focus on the areas down below, you might find some material down the low levels.
Just some rugged terrain.
Very rugged. I mean, I wouldn't want to climb up that. It's one of those things, 1 step up, 2 steps back. A very steep slope with a lot of debris, or scree as they call it.
I've looked for the Vesuvianite. I found also a locality in Nevada. Isn't there one in Nevada?
There is. And I've got a piece here that I brought. I don't know if you can, let's see it. This is a piece of the Happy Camp material. In fact,
pretty color.
I can wet it here. I'll make it a little bit more visible. I'll do a quick water polish here. But if you see that, it's not bad material.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it does. And it's translucent and it will cut decent cabs. It's pretty nice material. And it's got a hardness of about 5.5. So it's not too bad. A little softer than jade, but still a nice material for lapidary work. So again, you'll probably see this stuff in some old collections. If you're, buying rocks and say on the weekend from yard sales and things like that.
I can see how some people thought it was jade.
Yeah.
We
may have some in our rock pile.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the spinach jade or things like that. It's pretty decent. There is a company that I know is mining some jade up at Happy Camp. I think they're mostly sending it overseas to be cut in either cabochons or carvings or things like that. But there is some low-level production from that area today. Now, I have no idea what's happening with the Pulga jade, but I don't think that's being actively worked. But some of that is really nice material too.
Speaking of jade, are people still finding it along Big Sur?
They do. The problem is it's pretty picked over. There are a lot of people who live up in that area that walk the beaches every single day, particularly after storms, which is when you're likely to get the best results. So there's a lot of competition for that stuff. One place that's not as heavily looked at is Clear Creek, basically, as you go up the hill from Jade Cove up through the ravines, the rivers up towards the hills, there is material that's found in the stream beds. So you can find some. In fact, I saw, oh God, about 6 years ago, one of our club members had a spectacular piece of actually blue-green jadeite that they found up in the Clear Creek area there. It was spectacular. And he had made it into a sphere that I sold to one of my clients. And I regret that. I should have kept that one for myself. It was such a neat sphere. So, I mean, so you do have, you know, besides the nephrite, there's jadeite up in that area. In fact, that's one of my talks I'm working on is jade in California, to kind of some of these more rare and unusual talks. And that really deserves a talk of itself. You know, a lot of people were diving off the coast for jade too, because some of that material occurs in the ocean. And every storm will rip up some of the stuff from the ocean floor there. And that's why you find a lot of that stream tumbled material, or say wave tumbled material, on the beaches.
You have to be real careful of the poison oak by the creek.
There's
it's
a lot.
Real thick.
Mm-hmm.
It's real thick. I wouldn't go wandering around there with shorts on. Let me put it that way.
No, and you really need to know what it looks like. And the problem is you can still get it even in the fall and winter where you don't see the leaves. You know, just if you break the branches, you know, that sap will still get you too. So you got to be real careful. That's the kind of place you go and you burn your clothes afterward, and don't be anywhere near the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Walt, are you familiar with the jade from Mariposa County at all?
Yeah, you know, jade is more common than people think. There's a lot of jade around. You know, recently I saw some beautiful nephrite jade that came from east of Seattle, going towards the Cascade Range. So there are a number of places in the West. You know, there's a little bit of jade down near Barstow even. You know, I've got that, well, they call it, let's see, melanite. It's a very black, the black jade, almost a very iron-rich material. Some of it's in got inclusions of hematite with it. So yeah, there are a number of jade locales within the state.
We have a lot of serpentine up here in Mariposa County, especially the Highway 49 carving north from Mariposa up the Gold Mother Lode counties. So we've seen a lot of chrysoprase and jade association with serpentine, even in road cuts.
Oh, sure.
And we have a huge chunk of Mariposa County jade in the California State Mining and Mineral Museum, as but it definitely has a different color and a different rind, so to speak, as some of the stuff that you see on the coast. So I'm not super familiar with jadeite, but is there a big molecular difference there?
There is jadeite, and most of the material you see on the coastal jade is nephrite, which is a different mineral, and they do have different properties. Then the nephrite is more fibrous crystals, and the jadeite is a little more blocky. That's a crude way to say it. But yeah, it's the jadeite generally more granular, and the nephrite's more fibrous. So they are two distinct minerals, but they're both generally colored by chromium. The nice thing about the jadeite, it tends to be more translucent. So when you have the chromium, you know, colorant and a nice translucent, say, body of the mineral, it gives it a much nicer color. And color can range from, you know, here tends to be shades of, you know, light to dark green, sometimes to a blue or bluish green. You know, of course, in other places, you get other colorants besides the chromium. So like in Burma, you get material that can be lavender, that can be yellow, orange, and the colors dependent by the elements that, basically contaminant elements, like iron and other things. But here, and in the really fine jades of Burma and other places, you're generally looking at chromium as the inclusion, which is real common in basalts and the serpentines, which is derived from.
Thank you.
Speaking of serpentine, is there a more glassy form of serpentine?
You know, you do see some that is very lustrous. In fact, natural surfaces, for example, can be polished along faults. You see a lot of time what they call slick insides. We see a nice piece of serpentine in the field, and it looks like somebody polished it. And that's a natural polish, just occurs from basically you have two sides of the fault just rubbing against each other, and that causes that kind of that glazed surface on it. You can have stuff that's more translucent, which, you know, seems to polish a little better. Some of it, again, is more fibrous. Some's a little more, you know, almost, I would say crystalline is not the right term, but it seems a little more glassy. So yes, you can get some material that is, you know, looks much different, much higher lusters than some of the others.
This is a gem form kind of it. This is a form of serpentine.
Let's see. Let me get to mine.
I forget what it's got, a separate name, but it's a very high quality. This came out of New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sometimes they call it the Maori jade. Maori jade. And yeah, that's pretty cool. That's nice. That is very translucent.
We've got, I don't know if you know this, Walt, but in our lapidary group, we have a number of people who love to carve jade.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
And
yeah, there's certainly a lot of material.
Was Crystal's one that she did one for the Spectrum this year? Was it a piece of jade? I think it was.
I mean, that's what she does mostly.
Yeah. So she won number 1 in Spectrum carving this year with a jade piece that she only worked for what, a week or two?
Yeah.
Wow.
She decided she'd enter and there was hardly any time, so she just worked on this one piece. I'll have to send you an image of that.
Are you talking about the AGTA Spectrum Awards?
Yep.
Wow, that's impressive. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
She's very talented.
Yeah. Meg Berry got 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And Crystal's her student.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I looked up the picture that was on the AGTA page, and I didn't think the pictures there really did Crystal's piece justice. The one that you shared with us, Mary, I thought was a better picture.
Yeah, well, they will later take really good pro photos of it for publicity, but they didn't do it at the time.
Yeah, and where was the jade from?
I don't know.
Okay.
Aren't they getting most of it out of China and out of areas like that now?
Well, actually, almost all the Chinese jade comes from Burma or Myanmar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that she's spending quite a bit of money on some of these blocks that she's purchasing.
And she's also, I know that her husband's gotten stuff out of Guatemala too.
Yeah, there's some nice jadeite. It's kind of a bluish material out of it. Yeah, they sometimes refer to that as the Mayan jade. The Maya, you know, like several thousand years ago, using that jade from Guatemala. That was rediscovered about 25 years ago, after being lost for probably 1,500 years. Yeah, the jade from Burma or Myanmar is incredible. There was a large piece of jade that was auctioned off about maybe 10, 15 years ago that I think it weighed about a ton. And it sold, if you're going to, for equivalent of about $1,800 an ounce for a several ton rock. I mean,
Wow.
the piece sold for several $1 million. One piece of rock, probably the size of maybe an ottoman, sold for several $1 million.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, fine jade is incredibly rare and highly valued, especially in China and Southeast Asia. I mean, you know, it's not uncommon for really fine jadeite, the finest colors to go for $10,000 a carat or more.
Yeah.
Aren't they pulling some jade out of British Columbia too?
Yes, there's quite a bit. That's nephrite, typical to what you find around Monterey. There's nephrite also in Wyoming, Alaska, you know, a few other areas. But yes, that's the more common jade. The British Columbian jade is probably the largest deposit in the world. And almost all that material, I know the family that owns that, almost all of it is sent to China to be
Hmm.
cut. Very
more-
little is cut here.
Now, I've been to Hapatika, New Zealand, and it's larger than that deposit in that area, because I know for a fact when I was down there, they were showing us several boulders that at that point in time they were estimating were anywhere from 5 tons or more that they had not bothered to bring in. But the shops down there would have piles of cut jade bigger than my head, 5 and 6 feet high, and
Yeah.
they had actual rooms that they were showing you these
Mhm.
huge blocks of it.
Right.
But it was all almost 100% nephrite. It was a
Mhm.
pretty, nice one, but again, it was New Zealand nephrite was really, it's very, very hard.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's actually more appropriate for Maori knives and war axes, I think, than a lot of other stuff. But do you think it's more than that?
Oh yeah, this is probably in the maybe tens of thousands of tons of jade from there. I mean, it's enormous. It's a huge quarry. Yeah, it's a
Wow.
very large. I mean, they're mining blocks, up to 10 feet across. I mean, it's a huge.
We when I was doing auction stuff, we handled an obelisk made out of that jade that was 8 feet tall,
Mhm.
Wow.
single stone. We
Yeah.
handled tabletops as wide as 5 or 6 feet across.
What kind of machinery do they even use to cut things that big?
Oh, it's
Diamond?
all custom. Yeah, all custom made diamond blades and things like that. Sometimes they'll use, if they're really big pieces, they'll use like a wire saw or band saw. So a diamond saw, sometimes even it's a thin wire impregnated with diamond, depending. You got a physical limitations on using. You can't use like a rock saw where you've got a housing because the pieces are so big. So you have to have basically a blade and an open bed to lay the piece on and then to be cut. Have you ever seen somebody cut like a tombstone or marble blocks? I mean, they have ways of dealing with very large pieces.
Well, the guy that does it, I don't know if you ever met, I can't remember his name. He used to come down to Tucson show with his big jade objects. Well, he first got into it because he was into doing monuments and tombstones. So he
Right.
had all the equipment.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, it's nice material. I mean, it's another place you also get really nice nephrite is out of Siberia. The Siberian jade is also very nice, and that's fairly translucent and pretty uniform in color too. So that's another one that's really good.
Hmm.
But Burmese jade is by far the most revered, the highest valued. Probably has the largest production, but I mean that's
Yeah,
tough.
his name was Sid McCowan. He was out of Yellowknife, Canada,
Okay. Mhm.
and he was making huge pieces of the jade and polishing them.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, you'd need big equipment for those pieces, and yeah, he'd be the ideal person. If he's doing headstones and stuff, that'd be no problem for him. And it's probably softer than some of the material he's cutting if he's doing granites and things like that too. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there, and I'm sure just like anything else, there's probably deposits that we're not even familiar with right now that you'll find. So, people need to keep their eye out. But I mean, yeah, there's jade. I mean, in San Bernardino County, and some of it's pretty. It's a variety. It's a mineral called chloromelanite, which is a jade relative, and it produces lustrous. I mean, just jet black cabochons, sometimes with inclusions of some metallic hematite. I mean, they're pretty cool, actually. I just picked up all collected
Shoot.
lapidary material. I'm sorry, what's that?
I just realized there was a piece that looks exactly like what you were describing that nobody could tell me what it was. And I ended up putting it in one of the flats that we sold at the Rough and Cut.
Oh,
For
shoot.
$5.
Somebody got a
$5.
good deal. But yeah, and that's Southern California
Oh,
material.
man.
I think I just picked up a 2 or 3 pound piece from a collection just a week or so ago. So it's neat stuff. In fact, if you have 30 seconds, I can grab it and show you. I think I can.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good.
see it.
In the meantime, there's also a purple jade that comes out of Turkey that you'll see objects made out of occasionally.
Is
Like
it a
boxes
deep
and stuff like
purple
that.
or is it more of a
No,
lavender?
it's kind of a lavender purple, but not
Because I've seen,
not the highly prized lavender purple that the Chinese want, but it's more rock like, more opaque, but it is
Okay.
still a jade.
huh. Well, now I'm kicking myself on that one piece.
Well, who knows what's still in our rock piles, Leah?
Yeah.
Don't look at me. I spent 5 years working on that pile over at Janice's and I still don't know everything that's in it. Witness the fact I talked to Gina, she said they found a whole nother pile of gravel.
Just when we thought we were finally through it all.
Yeah. you
More
never know.
tourmaline gravel.
Anyway, here's this
Oh.
piece. It's pretty black, and it's got little flecks of metallic hematite in it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool stuff. But yeah, that's found here locally, and a lot of people overlook it. But if you know how to polish it, like there's a guy in our Searchers Club here who does a spectacular. He gets a mirror finish on the black jade. I mean, it's just unbelievable how beautiful that stuff is if it's polished right.
Wow.
Okay.
Takes some work.
Yeah. But now
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I may actually know where there's another piece of it.
Well,
Gee,
hey,
and I
there
bet
might-
you it's gonna
I think there
disappear,
might be a
Leah.
I think there might be a piece in the Olson donation.
Hmm.
Have to ask Don about that, I guess. But yeah,
No, he
But yeah, I
donated
mean,
it
there's
to
so
us
much.
and I put it away. I'll have to get down to the club and look for it.
Yeah, Don was cleaning out stuff, and so he just calls up and says,
Hmm.
"You want some stuff?"
Yeah, but this stuff was a little too big for his normal drive-by donations.
Yeah.
You know, his normal drive-bys where he gives you a call and says, meet me at the curb. And then he says, this box and this box and this box and this box are yours, take them. And then he drives off.
there you go.
Yeah. But
So
yeah,
that's
no,
one
he
of the
don't,
things. We have a rough and cut sale. I don't know if you've been
Mhm.
down for it, Walt, but that
I'm not. Did you have it this year? I guess you did to have your show, right?
we didn't have
Did you combine
anything. We just had the fall festival, but
Yeah. Right.
we're talking about if COVID can be done outside when it comes to March, April, May, we'll probably have some rough and cut sales
That'll be good.
because we need to raise some
Mm.
revenue, and we do have some good bargains. I mean,
I sold
Last-
200 flats in 2.5 hours.
Hey, that's great.
we raised $10,000 in 4 hours.
That's fabulous. That's really good. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. What I've found is I'm getting people almost every day coming into my store wanting to sell stuff because everyone's at home and they're finally cleaning out their garage, their, carport, their back patio, their storage unit, whatever. And I'm getting stuff at such a rate, I can't even handle it. There's so much material coming in. So I'm sure everybody's experiencing that with stuff, just coming out of the woodwork. I got some collections recently that been in storage for 25 or 30 years. And, some remarkable things you just haven't seen in years. And, people are just saying, oh, I got to do something with it.
That's all right. We've got a couple of, at least 2, maybe more boxes of books for you that have your name on it over at the club.
Well, all right. I can always use that. Yeah, I just picked up a couple big collections. In fact, last year was probably my biggest. I bought 9 tons of books. I bought an entire U.S. Geological Survey library. The Flagstaff office closed their library, and I bought the entire library, all 9 tons of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
wow.
That was a lot.
I was gonna say, and how many more warehouses did you have to open up?
Oh, I'm looking for a big warehouse. I'm just competing with all the marijuana people right now to find a decent warehouse space. That's a
But you
So-
could consider doing what those guys that are doing the hydroponics are doing. They're purchasing rights to the like partially done overpasses and places where they were going to put in rails.
there you go. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm out of space. I've got so much stuff. I mean, every day somebody's coming in here with things, spheres, lapidary material, minerals, fossils. I mean, it's just a steady stream of people trying to downsize. And half of them are probably moving out of state. So that's another part of it, you know.
So are you selling a lot online nowadays, or?
No, I'm just starting to, you know, I sold books online years ago before I had my medical issues, and I had to give that up because I couldn't take care of my health, run the store, and do the online. But earlier this year, when we had our first shutdown, I actually worked and got my new website functional for books. So I'm, actually still trying to get that going. And I have over 100,000 books. And so probably after the first, I'll start on a mineral and gem website too. But I've had my hands full here just trying to process material this year. I mean, I am just stuffed to the gills with material.
I hear you.
I just gave, I think, close to 1,000 mineral specimens to a local high school nature center and museum here in Orange County.
Oh, great.
No
Good for
place to
you.
put it all.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that stuff in the near future, I think.
Well, we'll
Oh,
trade you.
Thank you so much from Mariposa. It was a
Yeah.
wonderful presentation. Is there any chance you will make your slide deck available for us to look at later? I'm particularly interested in the Benitoite geologic information.
Mhm.
I will be
What we've
posting,
Share any of your PowerPoint slides.
yeah, I will be posting the video onto YouTube, so you can watch it and then you can pause it at the slides if you like.
Yeah, that'd probably be the easiest. So you get the whole thing. And yeah, I think most of the clubs now are recording lectures. So
Yeah. So
No,
you're
there's a
Yeah, so ours, we'll
No, it's
send out
okay.
a notice with the.
I just want to
with the
make sure it was
link.
okay to use I just want to make sure it was okay to not only look at them, but perhaps share them with the Mariposa Gem and Mineral
Yeah,
Club. If
sure. You're more than welcome.
we're relatively close to Coalinga, so that is one of our field trip destinations up here in Mariposa. And so the fee dig for the Benitoite has always been a fun thing for us to do up until the last couple years, where weather and fires have played a big part in us not being able to go. But Dave has always had a really fun fee dig. You're absolutely right. Every once in a while, somebody stumbles on something very, very cool out there. And Dave does provide all the UV lights inside of a shed so that you can go pick out the crossite and other items. But thank you so much for pointing that out. That was a very cool presentation you did. And I, for one, really appreciate your agility and flexibility after you know, because everything happens. I have had that happen. I'm on Zoom presentations all the time and stuff happens. So awesome job on being flexible there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for wanting to listen to it. So
Oh, no, it was great.
Yeah, we enjoyed it, Walt.
thanks very much.
It was lovely.
So yeah, and I'm working on a whole bunch of new talks right now. I'm working on one on jade. I'm going to do, I've got a couple other, I try to do gem mineral talks primarily because I'm putting together a whole theme to cover all of North America with the different types of gemstone materials. So I've got one on diamonds, I'm supposed to do in North America, ruby and sapphire in North America, the gem pegmatites in Southern California. You know, I've got a special one I do just on Benitoite where I go in much more depth. I include the gemology and a lot of the other things that I kind of gloss over on this one. But yeah, I've got that. I've even got one on meteorites and then prospecting for like diamonds and gold and things like that. I've got quite a few that I've been working on. Then that one, the history of birthstones, it's a little bit off, but that one's actually kind of cool. There's a lot of neat information in that one too. So
Well, we'll
got a
call
theme
on
of
you
these things.
again.
Yeah, anytime. I'm
Yes,
happy.
thank you very much. It was great.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
thanks
you.
so much.
Yes.
As president of the Mariposa Gem and Mineral Club, I will probably reach out to you if you are interested in doing a talk for one of our Zoom meetings. We would love to have you. So
yeah, that'd be great. I just did a talk recently for the Bay Area, one of the clubs up there. So yeah, I'm happy to.
very awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Wait, well, before you leave, I want to know, when are you going to write a book?
You know what? It's funny you say that. I've been kind of thinking about it. So, I don't know yet. I am so busy just trying to keep this store afloat, especially this year. It's been really tough with this, the first shutdown. We were shut down for almost 4 months.
Yep.
And that was a killer. And, like even now when the governor's made the announcement to stay at home, I mean, store visits this week have dropped by about 60%. So right now I'm just working on trying to keep this thing going, because my landlord wants to rent whether I'm open or not. So it's made it kind of tough. But yeah, I'm kind of working towards an idea for a book right now. So we'll see.
So-
Actually, 2 of them.
Great.
So what are your hours then?
Okay, well, between now and Christmas, I'm now 11 to 6 every day. But normally it's 11 to 6 Monday through Saturday. But for people that are from, out of Orange County, I'm also available by appointment. A lot of times I'm here on Sundays. So if you want to come up and Sunday was the only day, if I don't have any other conflicts, I'm happy to open the store. In fact, I even do, club field trips and stuff like that, since, well, I don't know if it's legal right now, but, sometimes clubs will want to do a little get together. So I'm open to pretty much anything. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time. We've been reorganizing the store right now because I've increased my inventory. It's funny, with no shows this year, I've still managed to increase my inventory by about 20% this year. So for a non-traditional means, which is mostly old collections. Like I just got a mineral collection of over 1,000 pieces from John. He was a mineral specimen collection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a guy who was a Wells Fargo vice president. He collected between 1944 and 1996. And this collection's been in storage for a good 20 years. I first saw it about 10 years ago. And then the week before a Tucson show this year, these 2 women came in and it was their dad's collection. They asked me if I wanted to sell it for them. But, and then I've had a hell of a time. It's taken me till 2 weeks ago to basically get the collection because of all the stuff with coronavirus. They're elderly and didn't want much contact. So I get a little bit here, then I stopped for 2 months. And I just got the last 200 pieces about a week and a half ago. So now I've got 1,000 pieces in process just on that collection. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
You haven't slowed down at all, Walt.
No, not at all. I need to, but I'm not. So anyway, but yeah, so, if you ever need a talk or, even a last minute thing, I had someone call me with 3 days notice, their speaker canceled, and like, okay, if I don't have anything to do, I'm happy to do it. So.
Well, thank you very, very, very
Oh,
much.
you're welcome.
Yes, it was very, very interesting and enjoyable.
Oh, thanks very much. So.
And is your website minbooks.net?
Yeah, I've got 2 actually. Minbooks.net is basically my publications website. I'm just really getting that going, and it's weird. It's kind of backwards right now. I got to reverse them, but geologicpublications.com is started as it was a holding place. So I put my first website, which is kind of static there, but that kind of gives an overview of the store and all that stuff.
Okay,
But either
great.
way, they're linked together.
We'll put that, Michelle, let's put that in the newsletter.
That was the idea.
Oh, sure.
Because what we'll do is we will put out a notice giving everybody the link to the YouTube video of this talk. And then we can highlight a few other things. And it goes out to, several hundred people.
Oh, that'd be cool. Thanks.
All
Yeah,
right,
appreciate that.
Yeah, and you're not that far away, so.
No, it's not really
No.
far, especially with the COVID traffic being a lot less. I mean, it'll probably be an hour and 20 minutes max to get here from.
It's a
from-
nice field trip because I've been there as a field trip before with the club. It's a really nice trip.
Yeah.
A lot of fun at the store.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good restaurants right nearby too. If they're open, they're still in business after all this is over.
Take
But,
out.
Yeah, in fact, I did a
Yeah.
field trip here about a month ago for a middle school class from, I think it was Aliso Viejo. They normally do a fall trip to the LA County Museum for their geology unit, but the museum's closed. So the teacher called me kind of desperate and said, could I bring my kids to your stores? So I had a group of middle school kids come in for a couple hours and just turn this place into a museum for them so they could, you know, see some of this stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
getting
we
real
got-
flexible here.
Yeah, we got to open our museum for how many days, guys? 3 days
3
then we had-
days.
this year, and they had to close it. We
know
we
it.
got everything in place, got all the signs up, did
Mhm.
everything.
Yep.
Yep, 3 days. That's it.
Yeah, it's devastating for me, and I'm not sure how some of the clubs are going to survive. So many have lost shows, and I think some are going to lose 2 shows, you know, if they have a spring show. So I think it's really going to be tough on a lot of the gem and mineral clubs in the state with these.
Yeah, we are very, very blessed. We paid off our mortgage a year ago.
Oh, that's great.
Otherwise, we would be in much dire straits.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, for most clubs, it shows where they make most of their income.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
plus that's where you recruit members and all that. I mean, it's really tough right now.
Well,
haven't-
we managed to squeak in our fall festival before things got tight
That's
again.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really did help. And
Mhm.
hopefully we can come up with some other things that'll help tide us through.
Well, basically, the good thing about that is we rearranged it, made the whole thing outside,
Mhm.
and it was very, very safe.
Well, that's
And
good.
people were very cooperative about that.
Well, they have
so-
to be. I mean, because I really don't think we're going to see any shows till June or July at the earliest this year. I don't think the governor's going to let any, you know, or the counties are going to let anybody open for any large gatherings.
Yep.
I don't know if
I
they'll
agree.
even do June. I don't see the fair coming on.
Yeah, maybe not. You know, depending on how fast they can vaccinate people and, you know, if people even decide to get vaccinated. So that's going to be a big issue.
Yeah.
So
So,
who knows? Oh,
all
well,
right. Well,
yes.
thank you very much.
Oh, you're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.
You did great. Woo.
Thanks. You guys
Merry
have a great
Christmas,
weekend. Merry
everybody.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you.
holidays.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
have a great day. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Hi,
everybody.
everybody.
Stay safe.
How can I figure out to get my piece picked up, please?
Yes, I emailed you, so I will.
That'd
call
be
you
great to
tomorrow.
see you, Lynn.
Michelle will be in touch.
Yeah, I'll
good.
call you.
Arrangements. Okay.
All right, good. Nice to see you all.
You
Take
take
care.
care.
Bye-bye,
Stay safe,
everybody.
you
Good
guys.
one.
Bye.
Bye.
End the meeting.